I say communication major, what's the first thing you think of? Probably a news broadcaster, right?
Yep.
Well, that's what I thought you'd say. We're here to tell you that there's more to a communication, no S major. Let's find out. Like I said, there are so many opportunities, such as science and technology careers and government careers. But there's still so much to learn. Let's ask Nora.
Communication is not just about how we talk to one another. It focuses on how people use messages and other forms of media to create meanings across various scenarios. People in the field of communication study all forms and types of media and ask a various amount of questions to interpret the data.
At NC State, a communication major will learn about the history and theories involved in communication. They will also learn about the different strategies used to analyze different types of messages, institutions, practices, infrastructures, and more. When a student decides to major in communications at NC State, they will be learning how different forms of communications, technologies, such as videos, games, and films, impact and/or change how we approach relationships, how we act in a work environment, and how we are in an interconnected world.
As a communication major here at State, they will develop many skills. Some skills listed on the major's website include written and oral communication, media writing and producing, cross-cultural and interpersonal communication, media relations, digital and media relations, and teamwork and organizational leadership.
There are many concentrations under the big umbrella of communication. For instance, there's public relation, organizational, rhetorical, and interpersonal communication. For today, we're going to focus on the interpersonal communication. According to the NC State website, interpersonal communication involves theories about human communication processes and the problems within these categories. People in this field are responsible for developing important argumentation and conflict management skills that they will put to use in personal and/or public environments.
Dr. Elizabeth Craig is an associate professor in the communications major, and she's also the director of the graduate programs here at NC State.
While conducting the interview, we each learned something new about this discipline. For instance, I learned that communication is helpful in every area of your life. So even if you decide not to major in communication, even taking one course in this discipline will be beneficial. Let's go see what Mary and Alex learned.
I find it interesting that you can use communication skills to be persuasive. For instance, commercials use aspects of communication to persuade the viewers to buy their product. For example, here, this is just one of the many ways that communication is used in daily life.
Like I said in the beginning of this video, there are so many job opportunities as a communication major, but I'm going to let Professor Craig tell you some more.
Students can be found as organizational consultants, as human resources individuals. A lot of our students get picked up by science and technology organizations to be able to communicate complex scientific findings to publics and figuring out how to connect scientists and the really heavy jargon that is involved in that community and trying to get that to a place where it can be consumed by a public and a public can understand that information. So I certainly had wished over COVID that the CDC had a few more communication specialists that were able to clearly communicate what mask wearing should be and how we should get vaccinated and things like that. So that's some of the ways that our students show up. Some other ways are certainly in the more mediated realms. So we have people that are film producers and work in TV, and we have people that also work in health organizations like hospitals and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of.
Okay. Some takeaways from this project and assumptions that I had is that the communication major, at first I thought it was nothing more than talking in front of a screen, to be honest. Let it be broadcasting or journalism or whatever. But now I know that from Professor Craig, it was so eye-opening to figure out how she uses it in her daily life with her family, with her spouse, and how she then uses her majors to help her students find so many job opportunities, and it's so many more than I could have imagined.
A few years ago, I
My
actually
main takeaway from this project is that communication expands over many areas, including ones with animals. For instance, Dr. Craig talked to us about a project that she worked on in the past that involves horses and mental health. And before this project, I had no idea that that was even possible.
organization outside of Raleigh that does horse-assisted psychotherapy with adolescent girls. So I went to a farm and I observed therapeutic interventions for adolescent girls and how they worked with horses to gain a better sense of mental health, to help them through kind of family adversity, and to also help them kind of build efficacy and self-esteem for themselves. So while I was out there, I spent probably about 20 hours a week out there just doing observations, doing both in-depth interviews with some of the girls, but also doing informal interviews with adolescents and also some of the staff that were there. And I know it sounds funny, but I also did interviews with the horses. Like, horses have really distinct communicative behaviors. And so I spent time observing the horses to try and understand the ways that they communicate things like comfort or fear or willingness, like partnership, like working together and things like that. So yeah.
Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something about the communication discipline.
Thanks for listening to our video, and we hope that you learned something interesting about the communication major.